All right, everybody, it is time for another one of my world famous tier lists. This time, we're diving into the world of guitars. Very interesting because one of the strange things about my audience is that you guys seem a lot more interested in guitars than boobies. I feel like you guys would rather lay in bed with a guitar than with a pretty girl. And listen, I know, things are different these days. Back in my day, that would be considered weird. But these days, listen, it's a whole new world. You like what you like. Never judge another man's kink. If you like guitars more than you like boobies, that's your choice. But today, we're not here to talk about guitars. We're here to talk about guitarists. We're going to be ranking them on two different dimensions. Number one will be their musical ability. In other words, how good are they playing guitar? But more importantly, we will be ranking them on whether I would like to invite them over to my house for a barbecue. We all know that that's the most important part of any of these tier lists. I had a threesome with a guitar and a girl. Never judge another man's kink. And really quickly, I also wanted to mention my Patreon. If you like what I do on YouTube and everywhere else, joining my Patreon really helps me do this full time and worry less about videos getting demonetized by YouTube or copyright claimed by labels. Patrons get all my podcasts and main channel videos early. There are members only channels in my Discord that I'm super active in. I also do giveaways. For example, I've been giving away a lot of Emo's Not Dead merch. And you can also have me review your music, artwork, or anything else. All you need to do is join my Patreon at the $10 level, and then every month I do a call for submissions. If you want me to review something, just drop it in the comments of that post, and then I will review it live on Twitch. So if any of that sounds cool to you, hit the link in the description of this video, and I appreciate your support. Let's start by coming in hot and start with Tom Morello. How about that? Your man, Tom Morello. Interestingly, a lot of people tell me I look like Tom Morello, which I guess I can kind of understand. There's something about him that's different from me, and I can't quite put my finger on what it is, but it's always struck me as kind of a strange comparison for some reason. Tom Morello is an interesting one because I actually have huge respect for him as a guitarist. Like, genuinely, I think he's an incredibly innovative, amazing guitarist. Like, the stuff that he did in Rage Against the Machine back in the day when they came out was just like legendary god tier shit that totally made people like rethink what was even possible on guitar, for real. Like, legitimately, I have nothing but respect for him as a guitarist. So on the one hand, guitar ability, as good as it gets. On the other side of things, we have his personality, which I've talked about many, many, many times. I mean, the man has a goddamn hammer and sickle on his guitar. I like how every time I criticize him for being a communist, people are like, well, he's not endorsing authoritarian Soviet-style communism like you're talking about. Motherfucker, he's got a goddamn hammer and sickle sticker on the guitar right here. I don't know what to tell you. The dude's a communist. Do you want Tom Morello coming to the barbecue? Absolutely fucking not. I mean, he is the last person you would want to show up at your barbecue, right? Because first of all, he would show up empty-handed, right? He's not going to show up with some nice burgers or anything like that. Finn's still living through the Red Scare. Well, why don't you go look up how many tens of millions of people have been murdered and oppressed by communists and tell me if you still think my dislike of communism is overblown. You know that he's going to show up empty-handed. You know that he's going to start complaining about Donald Trump. Every conversation, he's going to find a way to make it into a rant about Donald Trump. Every single time is going to happen. I think I'm going to put him squarely in the middle. Huge respect for him as a musician. Absolutely repellent personality. So it balances out. I feel like I would begrudgingly allow him to come to the barbecue, but I would probably tell him that the barbecue was over at 4 so that he would leave early. And actually the barbecue was going on until 7. So that's what we're going to do. He goes on the B tier, I think. I think that feels pretty fair. Now, how about your man, Sinister Gates of Avenged Sevenfold? We got to find the old school Sinister Gates. Yeah, here we go. Here's what I'm talking about. The Deathbat Fedora era. This is it. This is the look right here. This is everything I ever wanted to be right here. Look at that. He's got the bandana, the fingerless gloves, the leather fedora, the long hair, a shirt with his own name on it. I've played this before, but I'm going to play it again. What you may not know is that he actually comes from a long line of very talented guitarists. For example, this is for real. This is his dad, who was the guitarist for one of those famous comedians. I forget which one it is, but his dad is like a MAGA guitar comedy guy. This is a song about how he's moving to Arizona because of Hillary Clinton. Jeff Dunham, that's right, that's who it was.
Times are tough in my hometown. Unemployment's up, the economy's down.
Just standing there on the corner in his Affliction shirt.
I know where there's gonna be jobs real soon. I'm gonna move to Arizona, where they enforce the law.
Yes, this is really his dad.
When they build that wall.
When they build the wall, I'm moving down to Arizona where they build the wall. So I think if I was going to invite Brian Jr., I think I would ask like if he would bring his dad to do a private performance. Yeah, get a couple Coors and his dad, mention Pfizer, then walk off. That's right. So I'd say, hey, Brian, yeah, no, we'd love to have you at the barbecue. Could you bring your dad and have him play a couple songs? But in all seriousness, legitimately, I think Sinister Gates, Brian Jr. rather, I think is one of the most innovative guitarists of his entire generation. You guys know that I absolutely love Avenged Sevenfold. I don't know him at all. I met him once, saw him playing ping pong when we went to go see them a couple months ago. Seems like a good guy. I'm a fan. Absolutely love Avenged Sevenfold. Legitimately, I think Sinister Gates is one of the best guitarists of his generation. Seems like a good dude. He's invited to the barbecue for sure. Everybody in Avenged Sevenfold is invited to the barbecue, so he belongs up on the S tier. Especially, I just want his dad and Tom Morello to both come to the barbecue. Yeah, Papa Gates and Baby Gates, they both got to come. Next, how about, we got a little bit of a showdown here, okay? We got a little bit of a showdown. On the one hand, we have Kerry King of Slayer. I feel like Kerry King gets a lot of the credit for Slayer, but I'm not so sure that he deserves it. You know, he's certainly got the he's got the bigger personal brand. By the way, God of Aesthetics. Do you guys remember back in the 80s, he had this like gauntlet full of nails? Do you guys remember that? And I just thought it was the coolest fucking thing in the world, that like gauntlet of nails. And then he evolved, and let me see if I can find another example of it. He evolved into Kerry King version 2. Yeah, here it is. Here it is. Here it is, baby. This is peak aesthetics right here with the Ultimate Warrior Oakley blade sunglasses there. There it is, baby. Pure aggression right there. Pure aggression. And then he evolved a little bit again. In case there was any doubt where Kerry King stands on things, his shirt here, you wear your X and I'll wear mine. And mind you, Kerry King is from Downey, California, which is like in South LA. It's maybe 20% white. Certainly the least like Confederate place on earth. So kind of interesting that he would decide to anoint himself as a proud Southern boy. It's interesting. I think because of his aesthetic, he gets a lot of credit for Slayer's sound. And I gotta say, all the songs that Kerry King wrote are not good. And if you listen to his new solo stuff, it's just mid as hell. Just insanely mid. This is like all the bad Slayer songs. Like, who wants to listen to this? Just like stock thrash songs. So, you know, do you want this guy coming to the barbecue? That's my question. I don't think you do. I think his guitar abilities are a little bit overrated. I definitely do not want this man showing up at my barbecue in his Confederate flag shirt. I think I might rather Tom Morello come to the barbecue. I think, maybe. That's how bad it is. On the other hand, your man, Jeff Hanneman of Slayer, who wrote all the good Slayer songs. Look at these aesthetics right there. His Metal Militia shirt, the urban camo ESP. This is peak aesthetics right here. And he wrote all their best shit. I may be wrong about some of these, but I'm pretty sure. Like Dead Skin Mask, South of Heaven, Raining Blood. Like, he wrote all the best shit. Seasons in the Abyss. Yeah, and he brought the hardcore influence into the band. Absolutely. So, you know, Jeff Hanneman, he was like the low-key guy that didn't really want to be in the spotlight as much as Kerry King did. But Jeff, as far as I am aware, is the one who actually wrote all their best shit. And as far as I'm concerned, I think he's the best songwriter in thrash. I know some people disagree with me, and, you know, respect to Metallica. But as far as I'm concerned, like, the shit that Jeff Hanneman wrote, to me, is like just the definition of thrash, the absolute pinnacle of the genre. He wrote the best shit. The best Slayer songs are the best stuff in thrash. He's going on the S tier in my book. That's what I think. So I'm sorry, Kerry stans. That's just how I see it. Jeff was the soul. Kerry King was the face of Slayer. I agree with that. Moving into the 90s, let's talk about Wes Borland of Limp Bizkit. And I gotta say, I learned a lot about him from making the video about him. I always thought that Limp Bizkit was very irritating back in the day, and it's always been a turnoff to me when people wear like zany costumes on stage, you know, like Buckethead, or I don't know, any of these bands that it's like a very local band thing, like that he would dress up as a monkey, you know, on stage and stuff and jump around and be all zany and stuff like that. That's always been kind of a turnoff to me, and so I just sort of assumed that he was like a really irritating person or something like that. And I don't know the guy, I've never met him or talked to him, but after doing that video and watching a lot of interviews with him and stuff, he actually seems like a pretty cool guy. Seems very humble, seems to sort of know where he stands, meaning that like he quit the band thinking that he was sort of, you know, going to be a rock star on his own, and then he was sort of humbled with blacklight burns and big dumb face, and, you know, realized that actually maybe he wasn't bigger than the band. The way he talks about that now makes me sort of respect him a lot as a person and feel like that, you know, he seems like a pretty cool guy that maybe just does the zany monkey thing on stage to entertain people. And as far as his guitar ability goes, you know, he's not the flashiest guy in the world. He's not like whatever, he's not a shredder, but he wrote some really, really, really cool riffs that you know, back then, even though I didn't really love Limp Bizkit back then, stuff like Nookie really didn't sound like anything else. It was really kind of out there and weird and like almost progressive in a way. And obviously like his influence on bands like Amir and stuff like that. He is the king of bounce riffs. It's true. Absolutely. He's definitely the king of bounce riffs. I feel like he would be a good barbecue guest. I feel like a lot of people, you know, myself included, I would have thought that he would show up and be zany and want to be in the spotlight and, you know, be that guy. Be like David Lee Roth. That's maybe what I would have thought a few years ago, but knowing a little bit more about him these days, I don't think he'd be like that at all. I think he'd probably be a top tier barbecue guest. Seems like a good dude. He goes on the A tier, I think. Seems like a fair place to me. Wes, if you happen to be watching, you're welcome to come by anytime. It's just all I ask is no zany outfits. That's right. As long as you don't show up in T-Rex pajamas, he can come. That's all I ask, is just wear some street clothes, leave the zany outfits for somewhere else. That's all I ask. How about Tim Henson of Polyphia? Now, here's the problem with Tim Henson. Here's my issue with Tim Henson. My issue with Tim Henson is that he is much better looking than me, and I got a real problem with that. Anybody who's better looking than me, anybody who's more successful than me, anybody who is more liked than me, I got a problem with him. And the worst part is he's not even short. You'd think he would be like 5'4" or something like that. But at least if he was short, I could be okay with it. But he's not short. He's probably 5'10" or something like that, I would guess. Yeah, so I got a problem with that. And, you know, Tim seems like a good dude, but obviously we can't have him come to the barbecue. And there's two reasons for that. Number one, because imagine standing next to this guy at a barbecue. I mean, even if you're like a good looking dude, he's going to make you look like shit by comparison. And I'm not going to have anybody show up at my house, at my barbecue, and make me look ugly by comparison, especially if he's not even short. That's problem number one. Problem number two is that even though, here's the interesting thing about Tim, even though he has the face of an angel, he's not really like a fuckboy type dude. You know what I mean? I would invite him if maybe he would bring a bunch of bitches, but he's not really that type of guy. So I don't think he would bring a bunch of bitches. I'd be scared that he would actually bring a bunch of dudes with him, right? I'd be afraid that he'd bring a bunch of his guitar friends with him and be like, ugh. You know, every nightclub has the deal where before midnight, you know, women get in for free. I feel like we need that sort of an arrangement. Don't call them bitches. They're not. No, we gotta listen. It's I've started calling women bitches because I've been watching a lot of Love and Hip Hop. I started calling women bitches for a joke, and now I just do it like without even realizing it. But I kind of like it. It feels good. So yeah, I just feel like if Tim's going to come over, I would have to ask him, don't bring any dongs to the party, okay? Don't bring sand to the beach. We got enough dudes here. That's the last thing we need. So if you're going to come to the barbecue, I would like you to bring some bitches. And if you can't bring any bitches, at least don't bring any of your guitar buddies. That's all I would ask. And obviously as a guitarist, I mean, listen, I haven't even discussed his ability as a guitarist. So probably the most innovative guitarist of this generation, I think. I think he's probably done more to change the way that people play guitar as far as like all the hybrid picking and stuff like that. Probably done more to change guitar than anybody else in this generation, I think. So I have tremendous respect for him as a musician. I'm not ready to invite him to the barbecue, so I don't know where to put. I don't know. It's a tough one. I'm just going to put him over here sort of in his own little category of, in theory, I would like him to come to the barbecue. In practice, I'm not ready for it because he makes me feel bad about myself. So he's just going to go over here in his own little category, I think. So that's where Tim goes. Who's next? This is an interesting one. How about John Frusciante of Red Hot Chili Peppers? I gotta say, he is one of my all-time favorite guitarists at his best. Like, he's one of the best guitarists, like, in all of rock. Like, really just an incredibly innovative guy. Like, if you listen to the stuff he was playing on Blood Sugar Sex Magic, it's just like, nobody's ever going to do that style better than him. You know what I mean? It's like, he's mastered it. You know what I mean? He's just absolutely mastered it. You know, not real technical or anything like that. He's one of these people who just has a lot of feel. That feels like kind of a douchey thing to say, like feel, but it's kind of true. You know, he's just one of those guys that he could play the same thing and it'll sound amazing when he plays it and it'll sound boring when I play it. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for him as a musician. But do I want him to come to the barbecue? Not so sure about that. Number one, yeah, a little too artsy and out there. And I don't know if he's sober now, but he was in a pretty, you know, he got pretty bad with the drugs and stuff. And I'm always a little nervous about that. So I feel like he's one of these kind of people that he might show up to the barbecue and, you know, have a bunch of like really weird, awkward conversations about astrology, or, you know, he might be into like aliens or some shit like that. And I don't know if I'm ready for that. Or maybe he's just fallen off the wagon and he's going to get shit-faced and then it's going to get weird. Yeah, he'll probably just talk about how he got sober and spirituality, which is not the worst thing in the world, but I don't know. It's not really what I want at my barbecue. So I'm going to put him in the A tier. Incredible musician. Don't know if I'm ready to have him at the barbecue. And it's true, he might bring Anthony Kiedis, and that would be a problem. Yeah, hey John, yeah, we'd love to have you. Just maybe don't bring Tony. Is that cool if we just don't tell Tony about the barbecue? Is that cool? Yeah, were you all right with that? Those would be the conditions of his admittance, is no Anthony Kiedis. Now, this is going to be a tough one for a lot of people. I know a lot of people are not going to like this one, but I'm going to say it anyway. Dimebag Darrell of Pantera, who, if I had to choose one guitarist as my favorite guitarist of all time, it would be Dimebag Darrell. If you ever hear my band, you would be able to hear from like 2 seconds of me playing that I'm a huge Dimebag Darrell fan. As a songwriter, absolutely incredible. Like, he's such a great example of somebody that has tone that for anybody else would sound like awful. But when he plays it, it sounds amazing because he just has magic in his hands. The best riffs of any bands. I agree with that. But I don't know if I'm on board with this, though. The greatest of all time, dope person, 100% invited to the barbecue. Now, here's the part where I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure about this. Not so sure that he's invited to the barbecue, and I'll tell you why. I'm not sure when this video is from, but it's from NAMM, and maybe 20 years ago or something like that. And he uses the N-word with a hard R several times here.
Wait a minute. We got to test, see if the nigger can play, dude. If you can't jam.
You can't play. You ain't signing it.
You can't play, dude.
By the way, notice how trash everyone else in this video is that Dimebag just uses the hard R, and this fucking loser here in the suit is just like, that's right, man. We got to see if he can play. He's not bothered at all by the hard R.
Oh,
Hey, you know the test. Wait a minute. We got a test, see if the nigger can play, dude. If you can't jam.
You can't play. You ain't signing
You
it.
can't play, dude.
Like, that's right, Dime. The Dimebag fans, the racists will tell you that it's okay because he said that to a white guy. I'm on board with edgy jokes. Listen, if you know me personally, you know that I've made as many edgy jokes as anybody on the planet. Saying the hard R, not on board with it. Doesn't matter if you say it to a white guy. No, is the guy black? No, but it's not. No, the guy's white, but it's not okay to call people the N-word. It doesn't matter what skin color they are. It's not okay to call people the N-word, okay? Like, how are we having this conversation that it's not okay to call people the N-word, okay? It's not okay. Then you see this, it's like, oh, do you think the guy who casually said the N-word with a hard R, who also played the Confederate flag guitar, do you think he might have been racist? Pretty tough to say, right? He's sending so many mixed signals, it's hard to say what he really thinks. So I gotta say, as much as I love Dimebag as a guitarist, you know, my number one musical influence, I gotta say, I don't think he was a cool person. I just don't. I'm putting him on the F tier. I know this is going to upset a lot of people. I don't think it's cool. I'm sorry. I love his music, but I think it sucks. I'm tired of people making excuses for this shit. It's not okay to say the fucking N-word. It's not cool. You can't casually call people the N-word and then get on stage with a fucking Confederate flag guitar. Like, we need to stop making excuses for these kind of people. It's not cool. And by the way, he's not joking. What about that looked like it was a joke? So I'm sorry, Dime, but you go in the F tier. Now, how about, I know this is going to ruffle some feathers too. You guys know my feelings on your man Dave Mustaine. Here's my question about Dave Mustaine. I would like him to finally address, you know, all these years, Dave Mustaine has stayed silent on the topic of Metallica. I've heard rumors for years that Dave Mustaine was in Metallica and that there was some sort of an acrimonious split between them, but for some reason he refuses to talk about it. And like, Dave, please break the silence. Tell us once and for all, were you ever in Metallica? And what were the circumstances around your departure from Metallica? Please just let us in. Break your silence. The people need to know. There's a great clip of him saying that Obama was not born in America. Wouldn't surprise me if he thinks Obama did 9/11 either. So personality-wise, Dave Mustaine and Dimebag Darrell can go be racist away from my barbecue. I don't care how good Dave Mustaine is at guitar. He is not invited to my barbecue. Dimebag is the guy that's just gonna like casually say the N-word. I don't think Dave Mustaine's that kind of guy. He's more of like the intellectual kind of low-key racist Facebook uncle where he's gonna tell you that Obama, you know, is an African Muslim, right? So it's like they're kind of the flip side of the same coin. Yeah, that's what it comes down to. So Dave, you and Dime, you can go be weird racist Facebook uncles around the corner. You're not invited to the barbecue. I'm sorry. Now, how about the flip side of this? The last one we'll do here is the flip side of these guys from Blink-182. Tom DeLonge is sort of the opposite of those guys, the opposite of Dimebag Darrell and Dave Mustaine. Terrible, terrible, terrible guitarist. Like, Tom DeLonge would be the first person to tell you that he can barely play guitar. Horrible guitarist, and yet an absolute god-tier songwriter. God-tier songwriter. And I feel like even though he's weird, he's invited to the barbecue anyway. I don't know that I want him to show up and yap about, you know, UFOs for an hour, but it could be worse. I feel like it'd be okay. Exactly. Tom DeLonge is the only person who will be fine rambling about aliens at my barbecue. Yeah, I feel like you know what he's going to talk about when he comes to the barbecue. But I feel like he would probably bring some nice hot dogs. Yeah, he'd bring beers and laugh the whole time. I agree. He's sort of the polar opposite of those guys. Absolute shit tier guitarist, but seems like a good dude. And so for that reason, we got our barbecue shaping up here. Look, here's the barbecue. We've got Sinister Gates, Jeff Hanneman, and Tom DeLonge, confirmed guests. We got Wes Borland and John Frusciante possibly showing up, and then Tim Henson. Tim's going to show up and make us all look ugly and short and talentless and broke. That's the barbecue. So there it is, people. The guitars tier list. Join us again for the next installment. I would like you to bring some bitches. And if you can't bring any bitches, at least don't bring any of your guitar buddies.